I'd just like to start with a small wish. Deo, tumka saglyank baro dis deo. It means may God bless you all. Uh, so welcome everyone to Goa. I understand that some of you are probably here for the first time. And I think one of the more famous things that we have here is after the Your Story article, Sun, Sands, and Startups. We've grown fourfold in the past 6 months from the time the startup policy came in. We started with less than 20 startups as on 1st of Jan. And as on 1st of August, we have more than 110 startups. So that's a five-fold growth. And yes, we deserve a big round of applause for the efforts that the Department of IT, that the government of Goa has put in. It is really wonderful for all of that. For everybody who's here, we are very happy to host you. We're glad you could come in. It would be great if you check out our startups, if you meet our people, if you understand what makes Goa great. I said something last time that caught everybody's fancy, and that is like, happy people come to Goa, and happy people create products for other happy people to make people happier. And we are Goa, and everybody who's here for the first time, we would love it for you guys to check out what makes Goans happy, what makes Goans productive. Continuing with the same token, I am a PhD in how to bridge the trust deficit in financial markets. Blockchain is, in layman's terms, a distributed ledger that everybody has a copy of, that keeps a track of every transaction that's happening, right? It sounds very simple. It sounds very intuitive, like, that is how things should be. But when you understand the extent of this need, you realize that to send money from one country to the other, you need 3 days. It takes 3 days for nice big banks that pay hefty salaries to people to just tell the other bank, okay, so that's $100 from our side to yours. It takes 3 days for this transaction. It is as simple as that. The problem that blockchain is solving is of record keeping. And it is of an immeasurable scale right now. Where we are today is just the tip of the iceberg. And I am so happy that we are making good progress on this. I am glad that Goa has been able to host this. It's amazing to have all of you here. I would request all of you to put a big round of applause for everybody present. Welcome on stage, sir. I'd request Sri Rohan Conte to formally inaugurate the event with a small AV.
Welcome to the first chat on blockchain and governance. But before we do that, first of all, thank you everybody on this panel for being with us. It's an honor to be here. It's amazing to see so many people in this hall as well. But the one thing I must do is set the stage for the rest of the day before we start with this piece. And the first thing that I'm noticing is there's a serious lack of energy right now. I know it's Sunday morning. You probably guys have been out Saturday night. But what I'm asking you to do is two things. One is actively participate in this discussion. What that means is don't just sit back like this is a movie and let the sound come to you. Bring your attention to us and look what you can get out of this. The second is start appreciating what's going on over here. The type of claps that we're getting, it sucks, to be blunt, right? So, yeah, thank you. Awesome. So let's start with the discussion. I'm going to start with a question for the entire panel, actually. And that is, what do you think the implications are for governance that you're seeing? And maybe we could start with the minister, Mr. Conte. Yeah, so I was asking, what do you think some of the implications of blockchain on governance?
First and foremost, welcome to all the delegates who have come from various parts of the country, various parts of the world. It's Goa, it's different, and I think we have a wonderful event hosted for all you guys. So I'm sure this day is going to be quite exciting for all of you all. As we say, as Srini has said, governance. Good governance is something which is continuously expected by the citizens. Our expectation which keeps changing. We talk about change being constant. Similarly, good governance expectations are continuous. Things like blockchain are required maybe for good governance. It's how we decide about it. If we take it along, we embrace it, it's for the good. If we don't, we ignore it, then maybe it may not be great for the government. I strongly feel that exchange of multiple entities happens when there is certainty, when the uncertainty is very minimal. And if you go by the thought processes which has been from generations together, if you go by the age-old days, there was this barter system. The uncertainty was less. So what is to happen is the exchange of the produce is to be taken by exchanging some particular thing. So this certainty was there. So it is to happen. When the time came that the type of things were not happening very comfortably between the person who produced and the person who would take it as a barter system, the uncertainty increased, and that is where we had to change, maybe into currency. Now, what was the certainty of currency? I think if you take a 500 rupee note or a 2000 rupee note, it's written there, promised to pay the bearer rupees 2000 only, signed by the governor of RBI. Now that is something which is certainty. If that was not there, then it is uncertainty. If we talk about land records, if we need to have our title right, if we need to have a tenable property, if I want to go and buy a property, I need to ensure that the papers are right. I need to ensure that the owner who is selling me the property is the right person whom I'm signing with. Now this is where certainty comes. And I think blockchain takes a lot of these particular things together. It's like a public registry of what happens, who owns it, who transacts, everything, all information comes together. The best part about blockchain in good governance is required, I feel today, is because as we collect data, it builds the layers. It does not erase the past. And this building cryptographically into chain and getting it secured is something every government would look at. Because every citizen today expects the best of citizen services. And when we talk about adapting to the best practices, we need to have a lot of transparency together. I think blockchain is something which can fit well to what we want to do. So in terms of good governance, for example, if I take land records, through blockchain I would know who was owning the property, what was it transacted at, what am I buying it, how am I buying it? And that whole line gives me a lot of sense of security when it comes to ownership of a property, which is very much required in today's world. So government, whatever it tries to build a framework, that framework when we try to build up, we only become the enablers. But as we build and as the framework matures, I strongly feel blockchain can take the center part of being in the governance process. All in all, if we need to deliver, if we need to be what the expectations of people are, then it is time for every government to build up a goodwill, build up a security for citizens, and that is where blockchain can effectively play as a strong tool to get these services right.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on that one?
Yes, I fully agree what's being said. Indeed, that the government is really key in enabling and creating a platform, creating an ecosystem where enterprises, where corporates, where individuals can flourish. So it's laying a foundation of infrastructure where all the participants in society can benefit from. That's really key. That's the role of the government, right? And in terms of governance, when you create a blockchain network, for instance in the car industry, or in the food industry, or in the finance industry, many companies will work together in that blockchain network. The governance between those companies are really key. And that's a new system. Because if you create a blockchain network, the power of the network will accelerate. It's about the biggest network will accelerate and even getting bigger in this world, right? So companies will enter that blockchain network. Their competitors will also enter that blockchain network. So it's a new paradigm shift in having companies work together with also their competitors in creating a network which enables all society and all customers. So the governance model in a blockchain network is a really key item to discuss and to view as well, and also to learn, because we are not used to working together intensively with competitors to create a network effect that many companies are actively working on that blockchain. So indeed, going back to the governance of the government is really key to enable the enterprises to build upon a framework of common standards to make business upon.
It's like what I just to what he was talking about. When government is to understand that blockchain cannot be used to do what government is doing. Blockchain has to be used to change the ways the government needs to do the new things coming in. So I think this needs to get complemented, and that can be a collaborative of effort between all the stakeholders, whether it's the industry, the enterprise, the academia, the government. I think it's a collaborative effort which needs to come in place.
Just like to add a very small comment, right? I think to sum it up, it's about improving trust and transparency in the governance context, facilitating better mechanisms of open governance, right? Especially when you're looking at citizen services. The trust and transparency aspect is very, very important. And as a technology, blockchain is designed to, enable that right from the start.
Thank you for those answers. Actually, Professor Sahani, I'd like to understand, are you seeing use cases within education for blockchain? So what are some of the implications of that?
Well, I think, up front we can say that every time there's a new technology that comes in, there will surely be some use for it in education. So, blackboards to whiteboards, for example. As new kind of, materials came to be, obviously they were adopted. And so there's no question about it that as this technology matures, it's going to have a use in education. But my thought is this, the question is, to what extent is it going to ultimately impact? And I think out here, we're thinking about, shall we say, 5 C's and 2 Q's. So let me just run them down very quickly. I think the first C is content. And that's already upon us. The role of the teacher at all levels of education is changing fundamentally. Teachers are no longer conveyors or purveyors of content, or ought not to be. So the role of the teacher is transforming to being a pathfinder, to being a navigator, a counselor, a confidant, and all of that. The content is out there. And so the question to some extent is going to be, is this technology going to change in some ways both the content and the way in which it is accessible, but even more important than that, asserting the veracity of that content, which is a real problem today. There are a lot of stuff out there on the internet is fundamentally problematic, particularly for a learner, somebody who's encountering that material for the first time. Out here is the first cue, I think, is qualifications. So, as both in sort of the knowledge space as well as in the skill space, qualifications are going to become ever more important. As technology marches on, we're going to have to constantly need to retrain ourselves and re-qualify. So what is blockchain going to do with regards to qualifications? The second C for me is certification, because just qualifying is not going to be enough. The job market is going to require authentic certification. There are ways in which it's already being done. In India, we are setting up right now, a national academic depository. So in dematerialized form, all qualifications are now going to be, but these are obviously central locations where they're all going to be stored. Is blockchain technology in fundamental sense going to change that or transform that? I think would be another question. Another C, as I see it, moving away from the teaching, learning, evaluation process to knowledge building itself, I think an incredibly important C is going to be collaboration. And particularly given the nature of the problems that we now confront, as a species, as societies, as individuals, these are all problems that are really crying out for collaboration. So to what extent are these technologies going to actually assist in that process of collaboration? And if we are collaborating, here's another C, which is contribution. Particularly if there are many knowledge builders working in concert with each other, who is contributing what, keeping track of that. That's really, really important in the academic world. Mostly, we don't see the sort of collaboration we can simply because everybody's holding close to the analysis and the data that they have. So if we have a means by which we can share data, means by which we can get into the analytical or synthetic space, and where there is authenticity in terms of authorship and intellectual, sort of productivity and creativity, I think it'll fundamentally transform, I believe, the nature of collaboration. Collaboration and contribution in that sense, to me, are sort of, fundamentally twinned and linked. The last C I think about is the commons. What is the nature of the commons? I've already talked about the problem with the current knowledge commons. There's a lot of stuff out there, but a lot of us who are in the education business are not at all certain whether that ultimately is helping the learner or not. So to some extent, what is going to be the nature of the commons that would get created with blockchain, I think would be critical. And then the second of the Qs, I think, is quality. Because all education systems today are grappling with the question of quality. So it's not just what you're doing, but how well you're doing it. And it's about so it's not just about being good at what you do. It's not even about being best at something. It's about incrementally getting better at what you do. That, I think, is really the trick now. It's how do we get that culture of the cult of the better? And I think blockchain technologies here may potentially play a really important role because they help you to incrementally build, and it helps you to measure and all the rest of it. And I think also quality, the other thing is, we got to move away from metrics of quality, which are snapshots. The winner-take-all examination, the inspection visit for ranking purposes of an institution. And we need to get to a more real, dynamic 360-degree evaluation of quality, where your peers, your students, everybody sort of playing a role in sort of assessing you. And to some extent, if blockchain technology can somehow make that happen, that will fundamentally transform education. Sorry if I've gone on longer than you expected me to.
No, that's good. So, does anybody have any comments on the education side?
Yes, I want to touch on that. So I think one of the biggest innovations coming out of blockchain is that it's really decentralized. So if you look at examples like Wikipedia, how it transformed the world, where anybody, anywhere in the world, if you just have internet access, you have access to the world's information online for free, open source. And I feel like with blockchain, this also gives us the same capabilities, for example, with content distribution. I love making videos, but as people know, not in some places content is censored. And I think one of the powers of our decentralized technology is we can really solve this issue. So it doesn't matter who takes down your content, it will still be available, meaning that anybody who's willing to learn something still has access to that knowledge.
That's a good point. Are you seeing, as an investor globally, do you see stuff coming up in the education space as well?
I do see it, but I'm not personally bullish in the space right now. I think we still have to focus more on the infrastructure before we really start to see the next generation education applications on the blockchain.
Great, thank you. Dr. Chander, are you seeing use cases for security, law enforcement with blockchain?
First of all, I would like to convey my thanks to Honorable IT Minister and Amia. From the perspective of a police officer, I see blockchain from two different angles. One is from the cyber crime perspective. Now, Bitcoins is the one which started the whole blockchain concept. We have been having a lot of problems related to Bitcoins. Money laundering, cyber extortion, most of the cases of ransomware where they're asking for money, they're also asking in Bitcoins. Then we have got that famous Silk Route, which was brought down by FBI, where contraband trade was going on. All the payments are being made in cryptocurrencies. Now we have got into that domain where cryptocurrencies are being hacked, and there's a term called cryptojacking now. Even from ransomware, people are migrating to cryptocurrency because of the ease of doing it, and nobody comes to know about it. You're just mining Bitcoins or any other cryptocurrency by hacking into the systems of the people all over the world, and you're just getting neat money. So these are the challenges which, as a police officer, we are facing, because ultimately any cyber crime, it is the police under IT Act which has to investigate. But the technology behind Bitcoins, the blockchain, that offers numerous advantages for the police. Now we have got a system recently applied to all over the country, is crime, criminal, and tracking and networking system. So information about a crime or a criminal is available from a central database. And there are issues, there are certain issues. If blockchain can help us in doing that, managing that network, which is distributed, and all the law enforcement agencies have access to that, that will help. That will help a lot. Right now, the project is there. It is running. We also went live a few months back. But the use of blockchain technology into this crime and criminal tracking, that is very important. The other is intelligence sharing. We have got a number of intelligence agencies. Even in that, a private blockchain network can be established where the intelligence can be shared. The most important and immediate use which I can see is maintaining the prosecution history of a driver, traffic offender. Now, I'm a road safety crusader. I was Special Commissioner of Traffic, heading traffic unit in Delhi also, and in Goa also I'm trying my best. So one offender does something in one part of the country, other part of the country, and his prosecution history remains in that silos. This information is very useful to courts or the prosecuting officer for enhancing the penalty. Now, suppose somebody in Karnataka and Goa, he was driving drunk in Karnataka, now he's doing it in Goa. So how do I know that he is a twice offender? And I can go for enhanced penalty. If this database is available to me all over the country, this is useful to courts for enhancing the penalty. This should be useful to insurance companies. Now here is a guy who has done 10 traffic offenses. The probability of him getting injured and dying is more than anybody else. So he must pay more for life insurance. But we don't have that concept. Very strangely, we have got third-party insurance of a vehicle. Now, vehicle doesn't cause an accident. It is the driver who causes the accident. So instead of maintaining that, in credit card, you can check your credit card rating. And your credit card loan is decided by your payment schedule. So why should your insurance premium be not decided based on your traffic offenses? This concept is not there at all right now in India. So I think here also the blockchain can do a lot. And then this information is useful to road transport authorities also. You have got certain number of offenses. After that, you are not fit as a driver, so you must lose your driving license. This concept is there abroad. But here, again, the blockchain can come into use. And the next is cyber security. Now, if you want to talk about cyber security right now, or maybe in the later part of the conversation,
if you don't mind, let me just, I know that IBM is doing some work in the stuff that we were talking about earlier. So possibly you could come up with some use cases that are being done. We'll come back to the cybersecurity question in a minute.
Yeah, thank you. I fully appreciate what you're saying about battling crime in a country. So, for instance, anti-money laundering. It's a big issue worldwide, right? And we are running now a large experiment test in Singapore with many banks and the Singapore government. But before I go into that topic, let me stress that blockchain is not a solution for every problem. Sometimes a distributed ledger, a database which is connected with content together, is as good a solution to share information, right? So blockchain has a specific use case when trust is involved and direct connection to peer-to-peer, and the information is immutable. So sometimes you need to select a distributed database, sometimes a blockchain. You need to be very careful in selecting when to use blockchain. That's a general remark. But going back to the crime, to the anti-money laundering, KYC, know your customer. This is what banks always need to do. So we have a pilot in Singapore with 5 banks, with also the Singapore government and authorities and fiscal authorities working together in developing a blockchain platform where all the enterprise companies need to log on. They need to submit their information about the companies. They submit all the transactions about their clients. And the government of Singapore can access that information and audit that information and do selective tests whether AML, anti-money laundering, has taken place, or if KYC, know your customer, processes are being followed. So this is a very easy way for a government organization which can selectively access that platform where all the information about corporate clients and private clients are stored. And there are some other use cases as well on this domain. And this is a really big topic where blockchain sometimes can be a real benefit.